The shelf. Few words strike as much fear into the heart of cadets.
I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. You could cut ties with all the lies that you've been living in.
Contrary to cadet belief, the shelf does not require much upper body strength. See how this demonstrator uses very little upper body strength to mount the shelf. From this angle, you can see how leg technique, not upper body strength, is how the performer mounts the shelf. Cadets must first grasp the edge of the shelf, placing their fingers in the groove and placing their heel approximately 6 to 12 inches away from their hands. Keeping their heel close to the edge, drive the knee up and rotate the hip and slap the thigh down on the shelf. Note how much surface area of the performer's thigh touches the shelf. The edge of the shelf is all the way in the performer's groin area. Here we see the heel hook from a different angle. The heel hooks in the groove no more than 6 to 12 inches from the hands. One common error for cadets is to not place their heel in the groove, but rather too far onto the shelf. This pushes the edge of the shelf into the back of the knee and prevents cadets from driving their knee up and turning their hip. From this point, the demonstrator must use all upper body strength to mount the shelf. Many cadets will not have enough strength to push through this poor technique, and those who can will get slowed down by poor technique, and they will become fatigued more rapidly as the IOCT progresses. Watch the thigh make contact and impact the shelf from this angle. Notice how much the shelf shakes as a result of thigh contact. From this angle, we see how driving the knee up, turning the hip, and placing the thigh on the shelf gets the entire right leg and right hip above the level of the shelf. Once the right thigh is on the shelf and the hip is above the level of the shelf, no hands are required to grasp the shelf. Here's a simple drill that I like to show cadets. This allows you to see and feel the knee push and hip turn required to place your thigh correctly on the shelf. While standing on one leg, drive your right knee up and turn your hip over. Notice how I'm raising my right knee up and pushing my hip forward before twisting at the hips and turning 90 degrees. This is the exact motion you must feel as you mount the shelf. Lie flat on your back and push off your right toe, driving your right knee and right hip to the sky. Push your right knee and right hip up, arch your back and twist your hips, turning your hips 90 degrees to horizontal. When training on your own in Hayes Gym, don't be afraid to move the mats around. Here I've built an assistance platform out of spotting blocks. This will allow you to practice shelf mounting technique without being too fatigued. Using this spotting block platform, you can practice your technique over and over. This will really help you get the feel for the hip turn. Notice how the hip turning motion of that floor drill is the exact same motion done on the shelf. Once you drive that knee up, turn that hip and slap that thigh on the shelf, that's all you need to hang on. You can take your hands off. When we teach the shelf, we use the 3-word mantra of heel, thigh, upper body. Note how low the performer's upper body is while he turns his hip and gets his thigh on the shelf. By correctly keeping his heel close to his hands, driving his right knee up and turning his right hip over, he has his entire right leg and hip above the level of the shelf. Look how low his head and shoulders are now. The performer is not worried about the location of his head and shoulders until his thigh is firmly on the shelf. Contrast this with the previous example where the performer's heel was too far away from his hands. Where is the performer's heel? Where is his thigh? And where is his upper body? This is what a vast number of cadets do. They get their heel up onto the shelf and immediately try to pull their upper body up before their thigh is rotated and placed on the shelf. Some cadets are strong enough to push through this poor technique, but many are not. Watch these examples and note the performer's upper body location as he drives his knee up and places his thigh on the shelf. Here's another very common mistake for cadets that can't achieve the heel hook. Here the demonstrator has a heel hook, but look how far away his heel is from his hands. By pushing his heel out away from his body in the groove, he has no leverage to drive his knee up and turn his hip over. As a result, he struggles. Some of you may have the strength to fight through this poor technique, but it will slow you down and fatigue you quickly. That's enough of watching our DP instructor. Let's see some cadets in action. This cadet has good heel placement, no more than 6 to 12 inches away from his hand. This cadet's heel is close to his hands, but not quite in the groove. She's got a good heel hook, and her heel is no more than 12 inches away from her hands. She drives that right knee up and turns that hip over. Look how low her upper body is. Her thigh and hip on the shelf first. Look how low her shoulders are. Another good example of thigh before upper body.